Hey, what's up? Welcome back to ArchiHacks. And in today's video, I'll walk you through how we constructed this image I showcased on my portfolio. This rendering is comprised of 4 simple parts. The background creates the setting, the foreground sets the stage, and the building becomes the actor, and then finally, the effects that blows the audience away. Are you ready? Let's dive right into it. For those who are new to the channel, I post videos on productivity tips and tricks for architecture students, so be sure to subscribe and put on the notification. So since I can't possibly make this rendering again on the spot, I'll just turn off layers and put them back on step by step. So I'll kind of show you how it all began. So this project was entered as a part of a competition for a hiker's lodge in the middle of the Himalayas. So our concept was all about somehow like honor the tradition of the haphazardous nature of Himalayas. We created this lodge that is suspended in the air with a footprint of only 1 meter squared. That's why the building is like kind of hanging off of the cliff like that. So we basically got to sketching. So this is actually literally the beginning point where we started the whole thing. So I just created a solid, put some gradient on it to kind of like garner what it might look like. And then I think this in the second pass, we thought like we should make the profile a little bit more sleek. So we tilted the top a little bit and then peel back the bottom side a little bit more and made the profile a lot thinner so it seems as if it sticks out a little bit more, and hence the final look. In the beginning, we had this like metallic exterior, but we ended up opting for the wooden in order to appeal for the constructability. And the next most important element that came afterwards was the background, because obviously the site is such an important part of this project. And this is basically a collage of different images that are found online. And as you might have noticed, there's no color correction, which we'll get to later on. So basically the background is comprised of 2 elements. One is the foreground element, which is the part where the building is directly hanging off of. And the other part is the vast vista that the building is looking down upon. So both elements have to be extremely well executed, and here are the steps that we took. So first off, we actually spent a lot of time choosing the right kind of sky that wasn't too over the top, but at the same time gives you this feeling of sublime nature. And then we composited it with another image that looks sort of like that. So this was an actual image, another image that was taken from Google where this guy who's snowboarding was posing in front of it. And we've basically cropped it out with like a gradient mask and reduced the opacity so that we can blend it in nicely with the previous image. And again, as you might have noticed, we're using Smart Object as well as the layer masks in order to keep our workflow non-destructive. By this, it means that we can come back and edit it, but we can do a more in-depth tutorial on non-destructive editing later on. And then we added this little sunset to add some more colors to it. And then this is the part where the mountain in the horizon actually comes in. These are actually the same image that's just simply duplicated twice. And then in order to kind of mask this repetition as well as bring something more closer, we took an image of, so this is actually a mountain called K2, another prestigious mountain that hikers often challenge. It actually has a really iconic peak, so we probably shouldn't have used it, but obviously it looks epic, and we wanted the image of the white-capped mountain with like the cloud in the bottom. In the end, when we composited it with more mountains in the background, it looked more like Himalayas, which is more of a mountain range than a single peak. Afterwards, we added one more fog layer between the main image, the foreground mountain and the background mountain. And this fog is made using this fog brush. I can post the link on the description. But basically, it's like a random brush that kind of rotates and scales, so it kind of gives you this continuously random appearance. So we've added that to the outskirts of the mountain. So as you might have noticed, we're completely not concerned about the color because there's a neat trick that we'll be using soon. Before that, we'll just add one more curves to add more contrast. And now as you can see, the mountains seem as if it's like kind of glowing with the fog. And as for the foreground, it's constructed in a very similar fashion. It's also a collage of various images. But one thing that we wanted to do is So in order to kind of differentiate the foreground from the background, we are adding a couple layers of fogs to kind of like add more distance to it. As you might have noticed in other photographs, objects that are further behind gets this atmospheric fog, which adds a lot more realism. So we've done some of that. And the sketch for the foreground cliff kind of began with collaging different images of cliffs from all over. This is Pulpit Rock, and I don't know where this one is from. This is a copy and paste from the previous image. And then on top of this image, we've added a little bit of snowcap that wasn't there before, and a little bit of color correction, some more of that, and this image of a hiker that came from this image. He was in a nice white background, so we were able to crop him out pretty easily without having to go into much detail. And then we wanted to add some trail to him, so we took another image with just pure trails and added that on top. And as you can see, this image is a lot darker than what's around it, so we're adding curves adjustments to add more brightness to it. So it's a simple curve that boosted the bottom line. And then just we have simply painted in the remaining parts to kind of fill in the gaps. Now afterwards, we're adding more and more collages on top of it to make it to fill out the blank spots. To me, it seems like there might have been some mistakes over there, but it ended up working out, so that's totally fine. I think we should always exercise this critical eyes to find out like what might be missing here. And we felt like there's something missing here, so we've added one more thing over there, which came from this picture of a mountain goat. But we've only extracted this part. So it actually takes a lot of time to research images and find the right ones. And sometimes it takes multiple edits to find the right placements of them. And then finally, when everything is done, the foreground element looks sort of like that. Now, once that is done, I'll skip over to the color correction. So the trick that we're using to ensure that our collage looks good is by turning it black and white. When something is turned black and white, there's no more concern about color, and we're only focusing on like the pure geometry and the lightings of everything. So once that is done, we're adding this hue and saturation layer to add the color back. So if we were to create this hue and saturation layer again, we would click on this hue and saturation adjustment layer, and then choose colorize, choose some sort of blue tint, and then leave the saturation as it is. And another cool trick that I like to use is by double clicking into the layer. And once you get into the pop-up, there's a blend if option where you can alt click on one of the sliders, and that splits up which kind of allows you to apply this effects only when the background is of certain color. So for example, this slider controls basically whenever the background is darker than this color, then our current adjustment is no longer applied. And by clicking on the little icon with the Alt key pressed, it splits up the marker and allows you to add smooth transition between them. So that's basically what we did for the top part. So this in pure English would be that this adjustment is only applied to the darker parts of the image. So yeah, and that's how basically we did the color. Now we'll get into the actual image, actual building. So the building layer is actually comprised quite simply of pure geometry with a texture added on top. Now on top of that, we've added this mask to give more gradient to the building. Okay, and then the second important part of the building is the connections. So we've added these subtle connections that tie the building back to the mountain. And then next element will be the windows. And these images are simple boxes with some pixelated images in the back and some cutout people on top. And then exterior staircase that goes on the outside. And this is the part where the magic happens. We've added this whole folder full of environment effects, which basically is like all the weather elements. And the part that I'm probably most proud of is the snowflake. We've spent a lot of time trying to find right ways to simulate snow. And as you might have noticed when you try doing that, and surprisingly we had we had a hard time finding something like that because all the images looked a little too tame. We didn't want the snowflakes to be suspended. Even this seems a little too tame. We wanted this extremely harsh look. So this is the secret. The image that we used is actually... Let's see if we can find it. I think it might have been this. Oh my god, this is this exact one from 5 years ago. So we took this image, it was super high resolution, and seemed almost as if we could edit this into look like a really harsh snow. So we took that image, simply copy it, paste it in. Can we do that? Yeah, so we brought that in. We flipped it sideways horizontally, and then used the curves adjustment to increase the black, so only the highlights are showing. Now once that is done, we change the blending mode to screen. And then there we go. Maybe we could add some more on this side now. And then I was just using the free transform to kind of like... And then last but not least, I'll be taking a soft brush and remove the harsh edges. And yeah, that's actually basically how this extremely harsh looking snow was made. If you look closely, you can actually see that these are actually cat hair. Well, image looks even better now. Okay. And then just small things that we've added on top. There are some lights that comes from the other side of the mountain range. And one more hiker that we wanted to add at the entrance. And then this hiker layer is basically the layer that involves all the people. So as you can see, we've taken some cutout people, cut some people out from Google Images, and added this glass box that hangs outside, and put some lighting on top as well. I think we ended up taking this guy out. I guess it's just too unrealistic, I guess. Yeah, there we go. And last but not least, we've added color correction. The first thing that we added was this really subtle sunset. My partner who was working on this was really sensitive to the color, and he was able to spot this kind of opportunities. So amidst all this cold, harsh weather, we're able to get this nice glow from the horizon, and from which our building is kind of basking upon. Okay, there we go. I think we also ended up getting rid of that as well. There we go. And yeah, there are actually many subtle things that are at play here. For example, in the environment layer, even after we take out these snowflakes, you see that there are all these cutout images of like weather elements that we had to find from online sources. I think some of these might have been clouds. I think this one is cloud, but we use that to kind of express how windy it is up there. Last but not least, in the CC layer, which stands for color correction, I've added the subtle red sunset and some glow from the interior of the building. And then last but not least, I've taken the curve adjustments and then lifted the darker side again, and to give this muted black appearance to this rendering. And there we go. That was a brief overview of how this image was constructed. I try to mention as much in detail as possible, but if you're curious about the specific of each layer, check out the Photoshop file in the description. And let me know if you guys like this kind of walkthrough and I can do more in the future videos. Till then, take care.